Hello, everyone. In this session, we will continue from where we left off with the metahuman body rigging and demonstrate the process of correcting poses. First, we will click the Set All Scale Poses Based Ref Scaled button to adjust the weight values of all poses. When a character performs an action, the corrective poses might be too exaggerated or too subtle. This function allows us to correct all body poses at once. Although the automatically calculated value is 1.4, it has made the results worse. So I will lower this value below 1 to generally reduce the weight values. This function is very useful as it allows you to adjust the pose weights in real time, so I recommend trying it out when you first set up. The elbow still looks off, but the thigh now fits well. The pose weight for the fingers has also been slightly reduced, but still looks good. Once you have adjusted the weight values to a satisfactory level, click the Save Current Pose button to remove the temporarily created controller. Now let's dive into the detailed pose adjustments for each part. Click the Open Epic poseWrangler button to open the pose adjustment tool provided by Epic Games. I'll start with the lower arm pose, which has been bothering me. You can select predefined poses from the Poses section and apply them directly to the current pose. Great! First select the desired pose, then click the Edit Selected Solver button to enter edit mode. In edit mode, the connections of the joints correcting the pose will disappear, allowing you to make adjustments. In this state, you can directly adjust the joints as needed. I want to add more volume to the arm when it bends. Remember that the transform values of the corrective joints, which are 0, 0, 0, should not be moved. After making all the adjustments, be sure to click the Update Pose button to save the changes. If the update is successful, a log entry will be recorded below. Next, let's continue adjusting the other poses. One important thing to note is that poses arranged in sequential angles should be modified with a consistent value to maintain uniformity. Therefore, compare the current angle with the previous one while refining the pose. I'll also explain a method our team developed to address this issue later. For now, let's carefully refine each part one by one. Now that we've adjusted the inner bending part, let's correct the outer area of the elbow. When the elbow is slightly bent, the bone protrudes slightly, forming an angle. When the elbow bends more than 90 degrees, the bone curves inward. In real life, the more the elbow bends inward, the more the elbow bone curves inward. It's important to keep this in mind while making adjustments. Great. Since we are currently in edit mode, the corrective joints won't respond even if you rotate the elbow joint. To exit edit mode, click the Finish Editing button. Now, when you rotate the elbow joint, you'll see it function normally. The current state looks good, but let's make a few more adjustments. For the out 35-degree pose, the triceps are too exaggerated. Even when bending, the triceps seem to react excessively. I think it's unnecessary to represent the triceps for this character. Select the joint responsible for the triceps. Do not select the offset joint. You need to select the joint without off at the end. Then, in the scale pose section, decide whether to apply it to all poses or just the current pose. Next, click the Set Scale RBF Pose button. Similar to how we adjusted the weight earlier, this will create a controller to adjust the weight in real time for the specific area. Using this controller, you can set the weight to 0 to eliminate the influence of the triceps in this pose. The triceps are still bothering me in different poses. I think I need to make sure the triceps themselves aren't affecting all poses. In this case, please check All Pose again. Then select the triceps joint again and press the button. Set it to 0 and press Save Current Pose again. Now, the triceps shouldn't have any effect, right? This way, as I mentioned earlier, we can control the weight values of specific areas all at once. This is our pose correction solution. Now, although it's a less visible area, if you look behind the elbow, there might be a slightly pinched area. I'll need to correct these areas directly, as I did before. Please follow along. Good, we've completed some corrections. Now I see that the biceps are also somewhat exaggerated. I'll reduce this area as well, using the same method as the triceps, based on all poses. I'll minimize it as much as possible to prevent interference between various poses. This looks just right. Now, the problem will be the opposite side, right? We've set up the left side, but the right side remains the same. Fortunately, the poseWrangler also has a function that can mirror to the opposite side. After selecting the desired solver, press the mirror solver. Then, the opposite side will automatically be mirrored and set up the same way. For those who don't get a correct result during this process, it's probably because you didn't reset the initial pose or set the rotate value to 0, as I did in the previous video. So, if the mirror solver gives you strange results, please make sure to refer to the previous video. Now, we're done with the lower arm, so let's move on to the thighs. Overall, the thighs are in good condition. However, the shape of the buttocks doesn't look good when the leg is directed backward. I'll just make a few adjustments here. When modifying poses like this, it's important to adjust them to suit your character. The direction of the adjustments can vary greatly depending on the proportions and shape of the character. If you set up rigging without modifying these poses, all of them will end up looking strange. It's more important to process the work accurately rather than quickly. Although a lot of work will go into a single character, think of it as carefully designing the movements. Good. Now that we've completed most of it, let's use the mirror solver for the thighs as well. Now let's move on to the knees. It's similar to what we did before. Start by adjusting from a low angle and work your way up to a high angle consistently. Of course, you need to consider the movement of the muscles to some extent. In the case of the knees, the more you bend the leg, the less pointed it becomes, unlike the elbows. Instead, the two knee joints will stretch the skin together, increasing the flat surface area. Additionally, when the leg is deeply bent, the calf muscles will spread out to the sides. When you're doing body rigging, especially for metahumans, it's good to consider these aspects of muscle expression to some extent. Now it looks better, although it's still far from actual muscles. There are definitely limitations in the rigging structure for expressing muscles. When viewed from the front, the knees bow outward. This needs a bit of correction. I'll adjust the front part of the knee for each pose. Once you've finished, let's mirror it again. Good. The right side has been applied well too. Now let's work on the upper arm. We'll use the same method. When the arm is raised, it needs a slight adjustment. I'll use the weight values based on the current pose to make this adjustment. This way, we can select multiple areas simultaneously and change the affected weight values at once, using relative values from the current state. When the arm is raised forward, it needs a bit of correction. Let's adjust the current pose only, not all poses. Of course, this weight-based adjustment method has its limitations. If you want to adjust joints in the desired direction, it's most accurate to enter edit mode in poseWrangler and make the changes there. However, the weight-based adjustment method is very convenient as it allows you to consistently modify all poses. So, you can use it as needed for different situations. I'll also use the same method for the 90-degree pose. This will need to be separately adjusted and corrected. I'll make some more adjustments to a few poses. When the arm is completely lowered, I prefer it to be close to the armpit, so I'll adjust that as well. Let's test if everything works correctly. Yes, it seems there are no issues. Now let's mirror the pose. Next, I'll adjust the clavicle. There's not much to adjust for the clavicle. Let's just adjust the up 40 degrees slightly, so it's not too extreme. I'll correct the chest area where it rises too much. It might be better to completely remove the weight for this part. If there are no issues, I'll use the mirror solver. Now for the final part, and let's adjust the wrist. Overall, it's well corrected. Let's start by adjusting it when it's bent downwards at a 90-degree angle. Good. Let's test to see if everything is working well overall. It seems to be corrected to some extent. In today's video, we used various functions of the UE RBF poses feature in the MetahumanSet tool. With these features, you can design and correct poses for each part as you like, and customize the adjustments as well. Now we're going to delete the unnecessary meshes. We don't need the combined LOD meshes, except for the combined LOD0 mesh, since we've already separated the head and body by LOD. Let's manage all body LODs separately. Name these meshes as body LOD0 mesh. Please organize the names as shown on the screen. Now, we will manage them as a group along with the combined LOD0 mesh. Yes, as seen in the outliner, I've arranged only the body meshes within the Geo group. Now, we will apply skinning to the body meshes. Go to Subtools and select Auto Skin Load. Exclude the head and the combined mesh, then click Apply. Now you can see that the meshes are skinned according to their respective LODs. Let's do some testing. Yes, very good. The work has been done neatly. We've seen how to correct RBF poses together. You can definitely do this on your own, and anyone can do it. Don't have to think of it as difficult. Just take your time and practice step by step. See you next time.